we've talked a lot about how these large tech monopolies, the reason they've been able to outperform for the past 10, 12 years is because they're massive new business incubation engines. Should make an acronym out of that. They just continue to spin out new platform businesses on top of the core monopoly business. And that is what's setting themselves up to outperform in the next 10 years. And we're going to take an assessment of where we see the big three being Apple, Amazon, and Google. And see kind of, we're gonna vote, Nick and I, and we're gonna kind of analyze and kind of break down for you what we see as their different assets. So if we look at Apple here, so there's 4 quadrants. Top left is monopoly quadrant. Top right is critical mass quadrant. Bottom right is rising star quadrant. Bottom left is limbo quadrant. So think about this as going from limbo to rising star to critical mass to monopoly. And you can basically see this is for Apple. Limbo. What are past platform initiatives that Apple has tried? They've killed off, like the Apple Car, where they were trying to do their own operating system embedded in a car, or new platforms that they've come out with, but we haven't really seen some strong traction one way or the other, like their augmented reality development kit. Rising Star. What are new up-and-coming initiatives that seem to have good traction? They haven't really solidified that network effect yet, but seem to be trending on an upward trajectory. The things that we have in here would be CarPlay, Apple Health, right, which is tied to the Apple Watch and sharing your personal health records. We've spoken about now where they're doing deals with EHR companies like Allscripts and other places to try and get your health records into Apple Health. Apple ID. So this is the single sign-on, right? Where I can now store all my passwords for these other apps and sign into apps via Apple ID. And it's kind of this pseudo development platform that's letting me log into all these apps.
I would say that dovetails pretty closely too with Apple Pay, which today isn't really a true platform. Basically, they're just creating a distribution mechanism on top of the rails of the credit card companies.
Yeah.
But if you start to get to Apple ID, where they basically control the login and then, of course, can use that to facilitate payment, then you might start to get to something of a more actual true payment platform rather than basically a customer acquisition and distribution business.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Apple Watch.
Yep.
There's Apple Watch specific apps that are built just for that device. iMessage, a kind of messaging communication platform just amongst iPhone users. I'd say those are both pretty strong, doing pretty well, definitely have strong lock-in. I know a lot of users that just anecdotally, messaging with Android users versus messaging with other people on iPhones. There's definitely some good lock-in there.
A stigma to the green text with certain people if you're on Android.
Monopolies, right? What's the main monopoly of Apple? It's the same one they've had for the past 10 years. It's basically iOS running on the phone or the iPad, and then the App Store. Somewhat similarly for the Mac with an App Store, but certainly the dominant monopoly platform for them is this controlled development platform in our lingo.
It's worth probably explaining too, we don't have iTunes in here. iTunes itself, not really a platform that's similar to Spotify. Basically, they have a lot of these licensing deals with big companies that they can go and sell their music, much more consolidated. So there's not really a network effect there to the same degree.
There's 5 providers of all the movies or all the music or all the content. It's not, yes, exactly. There's no real network effect.
They have deals with each of these big labels basically to go do it. So there's not really a platform business.
That's a good point. What are the other linear things, right? There's Apple TV or Apple
Music.
Plus, Apple Music.
Yeah.
They bought Beats.
Well, that really transition into Apple Music, but they also have the headphones.
And they have the headphones, right? Yeah. These are all linear, either services or linear products. They're not platforms.
Right.
They're kind of bolt-on services. Even the iCloud service, right? Storage.
A lot of what
service.
Apple calls services revenue. There's iOS and the App Store, which is most of it, but basically everything they're trying to build on top of that is pretty much all linear. They're not really building out many more platforms.
I think by 2021, they want to get to $50 billion in services revenue.
Right.
I think they're around 30 or 35 billion right now.
Which I think at least 2/3 of that being the App Store.
Oh, at least. Yeah, exactly. Large majority is that 30% cut that Apple takes from when you spend money on an app. That's what we're talking about as the revenue from the App Store. Being the large component of it. And that's the ultra high margin revenue within the services. This other stuff is pretty high margin as well, but it's never going to be as high margin as the 30% take rate that Apple gets on all that digital spend. So, if I was to rank Apple on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how exciting are these rising star platforms, right? How much do I see these critical mass platforms kind of moving into their next monopoly phases? I'd honestly give them maybe like a 6.
I think you're being too nice. I'd give them about a 4.
Okay. Let's give them a 5. I'll average it out to a 5.
I think the one that has the most potential is Apple Health. I think the ones, if you have the other ones, I struggle to see how they actually monetize those in a way that makes a huge impact on their business, which is what they're going to need to make up for basically mature and declining iPhone sales. And China supply chain struggles and struggling in the Chinese market. Apple Watch, I think, we've seen is strong, but it's not going to make up the difference. And if I look in the rising stars, the only one that's there that I think would make that up is Apple Health. And I think obviously healthcare is a huge market, not just in the US, but internationally. And if they can get traction there, that could be a future monopoly for them. The others, I think, are interesting, but not going to get to quite that scale.
What I didn't put in here is Apple TV, which I'd say, I don't know, where'd you put that?
Apple TV I would definitely put in limbo as it stands currently. It doesn't have much traction. I think another one that would go there would be HomeKit. Basically their home IoT thing. They have this base station kind of thing that you can use to hook up other devices to it, but I don't think it's gotten a terrible amount of traction.
I think to your point, these platforms are basically dependent on the core monopoly.
They're all built around the iPhone,
right?
And I don't think many of them have a strong
standalone.
Right, many of them don't have a strong use case.
They don't have their own monetization
unless
model.
you have an iPhone. And they're not making a lot of money.
They're really just for lock-in to keep you on
the iPhone.
Right. But what Apple needs is its own independent, separate platform businesses that can stand up that 5 to 10 year future for them, and I just don't see it. That's why
Mac
this
OS
Apple
is
card
another
to
one
me
that
was,
would go on here.
Mac OS I've got up here.
Okay, I didn't see that.
But yeah, I'd say Apple TV. It's somewhere between limbo and rising star. I think they're selling millions of units, but yeah, are they really building out a lot of specific third-party kind of software developer ecosystem and
that makes money
that you can monetize? And I don't think we're really seeing that.
Right.
And they're kind of stuck between an Xbox and a PlayStation versus what Google and Amazon are getting to, which we'll get to in a second with Google Home and the Amazon Alexa. Hi, this is Alex Mozed. Thanks for joining us on Winner Take All. If you enjoyed the content today, which I bet you did, please comment, subscribe, and definitely message me on Twitter when we're doing live streams. Also, please note, all opinions expressed about stocks or public companies on the show are exactly that, opinions. This is not investment advice. Don't act on it. WisdomTree licensed Applico's Platform Insights data product to aid in the creation of the PLAT ETF. Thanks for joining us.